Vijay Kumar has actually given quite a provocation to all of us. He has already pushed us into the thinking of action. How do we now take this education reform movement into action? And we have 10 years to be able to do that. So I have an esteemed panel here, and our exploration over the next hour is going to be around how in each of our circles of influence, we can create action on the ground. But before I could go into the actual steps of action, I thought it will be important to get to know who's on the panel with us, beyond the amazing achievements and accomplishments that each of the panelists have had. So I'll invite each of you to start with sharing one story of education that you have from your own childhood. It could be positive or not so positive, but a story of education that has stayed with you from your own life. Ma'am, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you for having me here, and it's always a pleasure to come back to Bangalore. I think it's one of the most beautiful cities, and some of the most exciting things happen here intellectually, so I'm always happy to be here. When you're talking about education in my childhood, I think the two most important teachers in my life were my mother, who made sure I did all my homework, studied everything, and ensured that I learned adequately to do well in life. And then I had another teacher who was my class teacher in class 7. And incidentally, she taught us English literature, English language, and geography. So which basically meant that she was with us in one class or the other every single day. So the first day she came, she said, I want you, and we had to buy dictionaries at that time, pocket dictionaries, which almost all of us never used, So she said, this is your table. When I come, I need your dictionary on the right hand, top right hand. And I need you to get the thickest notebook that you can find in the market and get that. And every single day, she would come and she would write 5 words on the board. And then she would ask us to look it up in the dictionary. And then randomly she would ask us, okay, why don't you tell me the meaning? And then she would teach us how to use it as a sentence. And then we had to go back home and write, one sentence for each word. And the next day when she came, she would once again randomly ask us to read that sentence out. And she taught us for 2 years. And in those 2 years, you can imagine how many words I learned. My entire class, we all very firmly believe that we can beat any TOEFL, any GRE, any student, any day, because our English vocabulary became so good. Just because she took the time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes every day. And I think through her, I realized what an impact a teacher can have in everybody's life. And I think I'm eternally grateful to her for that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Arun, would you like to share a story from your childhood?
Thank you, Vishal. If being studious is one of the qualities of being here, I don't think I qualify at all. Trying to be as honest as possible. Talking about teachers, yes, we all had interesting teachers, but beyond that, I think my parents and teachers never kind of put pressure on me. That's one of the things, probably that was the reason I was not too studious. And also, I would say that there was this freedom to think beyond topics. I think that was the best thing of the times when I was a student. I remember that I was interested in science. I always wanted to become a scientist. Never got the grades to become one. But my science teacher also used to talk politics. So here I am, a bit of science, and doing journalism, which is a lot of politics. That's about it.
Thank you.
I'm Shashikala. Actually, I started my career as a teacher. I worked in public school and also in private school as co-leader. And in department, I got recently retired as a senior assistant director from DSERT. And as Vishal asked, regarding my childhood, like my mother. So she was not having that great privilege of taking education. but she was behind me, behind all of us to pursue education. Never she used to understand what is our homework, but she used to regularly ask me and my sister and brothers to do homework, study, and particularly she used to tell us like during daylight we should write, complete our homework, and when the lights were switched on, only some of the reading part she used to expect from us. That is a great inspiration for me in my life. And I remember my chemistry teacher in secondary school. I studied in Harvard, Basel Mission Girls High School, where Mrs. Galgali, our chemistry teacher, so chemistry was a passion for me. And even biology, she used to teach me biology also. Like, she used to take us to the garden, the school garden. She used to take us to the school lab directly and teach us there. So we were so privileged, and many of the schools don't have such a beautiful garden or the school labs, and passion of the teacher also. So that was also a great inspiration for me in my childhood days.
Thank you so much. Aaradhana?
Hi. So for me, I think I grew up in a slightly different generation where my parents had the privilege of being educated, going to college. So I would say for me, one of the biggest things that I feel going to school did was just completely opened my mind, because the family that I came from, the upbringing I had, school gave me the ability, the strength, the tools to, think radically, think differently, question everything, not take everything as a dogma. And I think when I look back, that is the one thing that I'm very thankful about, that what education gave me was the ability to think independently, to think that I can learn something, excel in it, and do some work in that sector. So I think that is a very powerful thing that a 15, 16-year-old can feel. And I have two small children now, and I hope that, one day they can feel the same way about having a good education and having gone to school.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vishal. My mother tongue is Hindi, but we speak Khortha in East India. But when I grew up, I was told that I have to slowly learn English. So in the pursuit of learning English, मेरी हिंदी भी खराब हो गई, अंग्रेजी अभी भी गड़बड़ है, तो माफ़ किया जाए उसके लिए. I studied under a Mahua tree. That was my primary school in Jharkhand, very small village. One teacher, 300 kids. And the visual of the school is literally that Mahua tree still exists. At the one table, one chair, and on the table, one stick and two piece of wood, so the children can pick up one number and two number. That was my 5 years. And, the RT came much later, but those days you complete 1 year and then you go to the second and third. So I don't have memory of any class. But the education for me was not the boundary wall of the school, because there was no boundary wall and there was 2 mud house, and we used to run during the rainy season. So I think the education for me was the collaborative work, interdependence. Whether it was Saraswati Puja or the drama or any problem in the village or any function, wedding, school was not seen as something else. It was integrated. So I think I don't have memory of any academic learning and excellence or learning any tool, but how do you live together? That's what comes to my mind. And middle school, I used to walk 4 kilometers one way every day. There is a place called Atka, which is closer to Grand Trunk Road. In those, class 6 to class 10, large number of children dropped out. Somehow I continued to go. When I went to college, I realized that not even 2% of my classmates from my primary schools are able to earn their livelihood and live a life better. So one side, you know, the positive side is that it was not a, you know, boundary of a school and learning. So a lot of learning of life. But on other side, you know, people couldn't live their life better because they could not complete their schooling. So that's the memory, and that's why I am trying to do what I can contribute, which is in my control. So thank you.
Thank you, Manmohan. For me, the memory that comes from school, I studied in Bangalore in a convent school. Both my parents, luckily, irrespective of the community we come from, were the only two people in their families who managed to complete education, which meant then we could go to school. I was a great athlete. At one point, I was the fastest kid in my class and competing in all the competitions. And I remember in 7th grade, for the first time, I lost a race. And I was completely dejected and completely felt like a failure. And I had the coach who came up and put his hand on my shoulder. He said, "This failure you will remember forever. It's going to be a stepping stone for something big." At that time, I was too sad to think of anything. So let it go. But many years later, whenever I have faced failure in my life, I have managed to go back to that memory, and that him touching his hand on my shoulder and reminding me that failure is a stepping stone to life, that has given me strength to deal with failures. I think what we're hearing here is amazing diversity, right from Dharwad to under a mahua tree. And here are a bunch of people who, some way or the other, are part of creating this education reform in our country today. And it will require this diversity of voices, experiences, if we want to reform education for the millions of kids who go into school in our country today. So I'm quite excited to continue this conversation. Shashikala ma'am, I'm going to come to you. You have been part of the smallest ecosystem of school transmission, which is an actual school. And you've been in the trenches, right? You've been on the ground, working with children, working with the school system. Now, if you have to transform the experience of school and learning for a child within a school environment, what is it that we need to do?
So thank you, Vishal. Actually, what Vishal asked is a very huge topic, so which require a lot of time. But being in the school, working as a teacher is different, and working as school leader is totally different. And we will say any thriving nation, the education system is the base. And crafting of education has happened from years. And actually, curriculum will be redesigned as per the need of the day. And taking that curriculum in the form of textbook to school and making them learn, that is one part. So, and another greater part remains that the all-round development of the child. So we won't think only of the textbook or it is only 30 to 40% of learning happens through textbook, and most of the things happens through their different experiences. And I, being working as a school leader in a public school, it was totally a different experience for me working in a private school. When I was working in one of the public school of Bangalore, I noticed one child, every time she used to write mistakes. So whatever the teacher is to write on the board, she used to copy that, but there used to be a lot of mistake in the notebook what she used to copy. And it was noticed by the teacher, and the place was also changed. She used to sit in the back and she was made to sit in the front row. But once again, the same thing happened. Then immediately I got to know that there is some problem in the vision of the child. So it is not with one child, it was with many children. So I contacted one of the charitable trusts, and all the children were made to undergo eye testing. And out of some 250, 300 children, nearly 36 children were having vision problem. But as we know, in our public school, children from different socio-economic background will come. Most of the parents, they don't have time or money to take care of the child. And we came to know that there are some 36 children having vision problem. And we requested the same charitable trust, they made arrangements for their spectacles. And wearing spectacle was indeed, for the girls particularly, they used to feel that wearing spectacle is a bit lower to their, maybe to their beauty or maybe, so they were hesitating. And we were managing with one small group of children, we made them to wear regularly. And their performance increased. And it was the same thing with the audio also. Never we know what difficulty the child is having. And it is rather a difficult situation for the school leader to identify all these things. So these are all, and we'll have our routine work as a school leader. So we'll be given a lot of routine work from the department. And we will have our own plan and the visions. And we will see that where the school is and we want to take school to a different level. But in between, we will face number of challenges. So I thought the health checkup of all the children is very much required. So I contacted one of the hospital and all kind of medical checkup were done for the children. And the performance gradually increased. So, and the participation also increased. And we used to prescribe the medicine, but never parents used to get medicine for them. And the medicines were also kept in the school and given regularly. Because, so when they have their health, food, and the minimum requirement is satisfied to the child, so then the focus will be definitely on the learning. And even many a times I used to feel that a child who will come for the school will not be knowing like where it is coming and what it is doing and what is the future goal. All those things, those children will not be having any vision. But we should create that vision in the child because the parental support or the society from which they come will not be having focus on all these aspects. So we need to create a vision in the children, like what are the opportunities they have. So it is not only with the textbook or the exams and the tests, but what opportunities they'll have and how they need to go ahead. And apart from the regular textbook and learning, so there are a lot of other aspects like health and well-being. It may be regarding the mental health of the child, or it is regarding the hygiene, and regarding the focus on environment, and self-hygiene, personal hygiene, and these are the basic aspects that a school leader need to provide. The information need to be provided. All the information cannot be provided in the classroom. So different opportunities need to be created for the child to understand all these various aspects. And apart from that, the child coming to public school may not have opportunity to learn the technology. And when I was in one of the public school of Bangalore, so my school was not given opportunity for having Maiti Sindhu. And as we say, communication is also equally important. I approached our director and I explained that there are nearly 300 to 400 girls studying in my school. And the society still encourage boys to learn, but not the girls. So in their families. So immediately the challenge was given to me that the whole of the room should be kept ready. The computer lab need to be set, and so that sanctioning will be given to my. So I worked day and night. We got everything ready, like the whole platform was created, and nearly 15 computers were provided to my school. And I was having bit knowledge of technology, like the department gave me training. So with that training, I started teaching children along with the computer teachers. And so in this way, lot of things need to be done. So and even all the children from whichever background they come, but they should get equal opportunities. So that is what I feel. And many times as a school leader, there will be some change, resistance for the change. So, and there will be some communication problem, like what is my requirement? I may require some training. So I need to express that I require this set of skill sets. So expressing that is also another aspect. And updating ourselves to the skills, what is required for the school leader. So all these things
Thank
can
you, ma'am.
definitely
Thank you
change.
so much.
Yeah, can definitely change the role of the school leader. Thank you.
What I heard from this beautiful story that you shared is the level of empathy that you as a teacher and a school leader showed, going beyond just understanding their educational needs to also understanding their health needs, understanding their needs for additional skills, understanding the needs of the school environment itself. And I think this is a great example of, at the level of a school leader, how one can look at creating education reform, engaging the community, engaging the health system, engaging the parents. So that's a wonderful example, man. Thank you so much.
Can I add a sentence? Like most of the, I have communicated with number of school leaders, and they'll say like most of the time will be with the paperwork, providing information. So, but we can also, but as I was used to technology, I created a database of all my, of all the students when I was working as a school leader. And all the information I used to provide, and I used to assess children also using that database. But for most of the school leader, as I become senior in the department, working as senior assistant director, I experienced that many of the school leaders require trainings and handholding using technology. And even today, they depend on cyber centers wherein which they'll pay huge amount getting the data updated. So, and if the knowledge is provided and if the training is provided and some sort of handholding
Absolutely.
given.
Yes, I'll come back to you on what more we can do, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Rashmi ji, I'll come to you now. Let's take a step up to a level of abstraction beyond the school to the level of the government. Now, of course, sir kind of gave us the landscape of how big and complex the education challenges in the country. What we're also increasingly realizing is that not a single stakeholder can solve this complex problem. And government is, of course, the most important and critical stakeholder. But according to you, how can the government play a pivotal role in one, bringing together other stakeholders, like parents or other NGOs, or maybe media or employers, into this education reform journey? And how can the government kind of bring them in to contribute to this education reform journey?
Actually, I think it's quite easy in the government to do that because we have possibly the largest number of schools in the entire system are always with the government. So it's easy to, talk to the teachers and involve the local community. And I have personally always felt that NGOs are more than happy to come and support the government in various areas if they see that we have the right intent. So that's not difficult at all. And I know that politicians have a bad name, but most politicians that I know are usually very deeply concerned about the status of education in their area. And they're all looking for opening new schools or getting more teachers into their systems. And a lot of them often come to us and say, tell us what we can do to improve the, system. Can we give money from our funds? What can we do? So I don't think it's at all difficult. It's just a question of, putting your intent out there and be willing to create partnerships.
I think that's absolutely wonderful to hear. And of course, I think in the last few years, at least in the NGO sector, we have seen increasingly more openness from within the government and the bureaucracy to invite NGOs in this education reform journey. What should the other stakeholders be mindful of?
Okay, so the first thing I always feel is that when other stakeholders are coming into the system, is to realize that this is a deeply complex system and everybody in the government is trying very hard. Yeah, don't come with this sense of contempt for the government. I sometimes find that people think that, oh, it's the government, they don't know or they don't want to do. It's not like that. Everybody's trying hard and everybody is working towards something. So have that sense of empathy and that sense of respect. Also, understand that the government works at scale. So, and NGOs work, deeply into smaller areas. So the intensity of engagement is different. So because you are working in a smaller set of things, in a smaller maybe geographical area or area in terms of what you're looking at, naturally the intensity of engagement is going to be much higher. It is hard for the government to do that. But with the right kind of, leveraging the right kind of points and creating the right kind of programs, we can together deliver the right results and deliver extremely good results. So having mutual respect and also understanding that education is a sector that takes a lot of time. It's not like, okay, you are putting in something today and the output is going to be out there tomorrow. It's a sector which has a very, very long gestation period.
Excellent points all. One of the stakeholders that I would like to kind of ask you to give us an input on is the parents itself. We have an education narrative which I think every parent believes today. I have friends, the day the child is born, they're standing in line to the best schools in the city to get an admission for 4 years later. Right? So every parent in India today just believes and knows that the minute the child is born, my child is going to go to school. And we have done very, very well with that. But what parents expect out of the school? Especially when you see parents coming into a parent-teacher meeting, how is my child studying? Are they getting homework? How will they do well in exams? Why are they not studying enough? The questions are around largely academic education. And finally, when it leads to, as Sir also said, finally when it leads to kids coming to end of school grades and college grades, we see 45% of them have dropped out of the system. So how do we get parents to shift their narrative around what they expect out of the education system?
So I think we're talking about two kinds of systems here. One is the private education system where, parents are exactly the way you were saying. And the other is the government system where the parents really have no voice. So in the private school system, naturally and rightly so, parents are completely focused on whether my child is getting the right kind of marks, whether my child will get into the right kind of college. Because at the end of the day, the child has to earn a livelihood. So naturally, it's all very well for us to say, nahi, holistic development hona chahiye, vagara, vagara. But at the end of the day, the parent is eventually looking to make sure that the child gets a good job. So how do we actually ensure that the aspiration of the parent and the ability of the child match up? And how do we kind of ensure that there is no undue pressure on the child, but at the same time there is, we don't have a situation where there is such little pressure on the child that a child who's perfectly capable of performing well is not doing so. But that's a problem the private sector faces. I don't have too much knowledge about that beyond this, except for the fact that I'm a parent myself. But I think in the government system, the problem is different. The problem is that the parents really have very little voice or no voice because the kind of strata of society that they're coming from, they really can't walk up to the teacher and ask, why aren't you teaching my child? So they perforce believe whatever the teacher is telling them. And the teachers, and I would like to share this, just bear with me for 2 minutes. Pre-COVID, every time I walked into a school, my teachers would say, parents are not interested, they are not sending their children to school, what can we do? And then COVID happened. And during COVID, we set up a lot of WhatsApp groups. We started, Hamara Ghar Hamara Vidyalaya, where we sent out material for children, and then teachers would go out in small groups and teach the children at the village or wherever. Not inside the school, but somewhere close to the community. And then suddenly something very interesting started happening. Because we had asked our teachers to call up 5 parents every day and ask how the children are doing. And then they started telling us, ma'am, we were totally wrong. These are parents who want the same thing for their children that we want for our children. And now we are understanding what the aspiration of the parent is, what is the problem of the parent. And now I think I will be able to deliver better because I understand the aspiration of the parent. So I think creating that dialogue, even though it was perforce during COVID, really brought about a paradigm shift for my teachers. So I think that is very interesting, and I hope it continues like that.
I think that's a great example of bringing parents into that, into being a stakeholder, aligning what the teacher believes about the child and what the parent believes about the child, and kind of understanding that both of us want the same thing as an aspiration for the child. That's a great example, and I do hope it has continued post-COVID too. Thank you. Manmohan, I'm going to come to you. You represent the civil society, but also represent the collective action group that increasingly civil society players, NGOs are beginning to come together and saying, we can't solve this problem alone. It's a long, big, complex problem. So in your own experience, what role can the civil society play in pushing forward this collective action agenda or education reform?
So I think, Sanjay ji talked about our, past with few critical headlines. I think the basic nature of human beings is to support each other. We have to first acknowledge that I can't exist without others. And others is not just human beings, but all species, nature. So if we believe that, and then come back to, Sarkar, Samaj, Bazaar, Sanchar, we have divided all this. But the purpose is same. So I think if you, we like it or not, this is the capitalist world, right? Money is important, right? And in the corporation, we have learned so much of tools that how you can be more efficient. So if you look at the efficiency tool, that pushes something inside the government or even in the civil society. But if we look at the whole fraternity, which is part of our, constitution as well, or equality or equity, right? That's not efficiency model. That is coming together. That how do we bring people together on purpose? So I think origin of the civil society, unfortunately we believe that NGOs represent civil society. That's not true, right? One individual, every citizen is part of that, right? Today I'm in government, but I'm citizen of the country. So I'm also civil society, but particularly to NGO, I think in my experience, logos and egos keep shifting. Our logos becomes ego. And if that continues to happen, I think collaboration is not happening. Other is, I think every day in the newspaper we are reading about scale. Unicorn, how many unicorns are there? How are you going to scale this? Because we have the number, always there is a pressure of scale. I think that has created gap. Because what about one, community-based organization who has worked for 20 years in one block, one panchayat, with just 1,000 women? Unfortunately, today that person is not respected. Because CSR will not give money to that individual. Why? Because you don't have compliance. And the collector office, when you go, they don't have the vocabulary to have conversation there. that what is it that they are doing. And people like us have that vocabulary, we go and quickly have the connection. So I think we are losing lot of people who have the deep understanding of jungle, jameen, jaat, pani, jhagda. If you do not have that understanding of that particular panchayat, of that community, Baksa in Assam, which is Bhutan border, if you want to solve problem there, or the Jaisalmer, which is bigger than Kerala in geography, right? But that's one district. If we want to go deeper into those, or flood area where every year there is a flood for 4 months, that cannot be solved by the technical solution. And what Sanjay ji also referred about, can education problem be solved by education department or education NGOs? My answer is also no, it cannot be solved. For these areas, lot of social determinants sitting outside. Why girl child is not completing schooling? Not because school has some issues, right? Because parents is migrating for labor, because health issues are there, menstrual issues are there, there are lots of issues, anemia is there, right? Child marriage is there. If we don't solve these issues, school alone can't solve this problem. And I think civil societies having understanding that there is a common purpose at the district level, at the block level, and if we start having that conversation, that all of us at the same problem we are trying to solve, and we just, I think this convening, what is needed? Convening. But not just convening, real deep listening. And I think that is missing. Because of time pressure, because of deadline, because you have to deliver, and we, every project one NGO is submitting, saying in 3 years I will transform everything. But we all know that doesn't happen. So I think ability to spend time to actually listen and understand is missing. And if we build that, wherever it is built, I think we can see the shift. Shift in the relationship with the purpose, shift in the relationship with the Sarkar, Samaj, Bazaar, everyone coming together for the common purpose and trying to see what capability I bring on the table instead of getting into more than that. And I think if we do this process continuously, reflect and again correct and move, change is happening and it will happen. There is no dearth of hope.
Thank you. I think what I picked up from what you shared, Manmohan, is one is that how do we continue to strengthen local community-based leaders and organizations who have understanding of context and the complexity of that context? How do we let go of, at the level of the NGOs, how do we let go of egos and start building a shared purpose? Thank you so much. Can't see how much time we have. 5 minutes. Sorry. We're nowhere close to finishing. Sorry, we're going to go over time. Arun, I want to come to you at a level of abstraction which is truly societal, because you represent the media. Now, of course, there are certain narratives about education that have been built over the last 40, 50 years. Education is the key out of poverty. Education will help kids get jobs and build careers and build a better quality of life. Education will build harmony, and there are many, many narratives around education. Some of these narratives are redundant today. Some of these narratives are not true anymore. If there are new narratives now that need to be shaped around the purpose of education, and that then leading to shifting mindsets among young people themselves, among parents, among school systems, among the larger society, what would be some of those narratives that need to shift? And what role can media play in helping shift some of those narratives?
Okay. I thought since I told you that I was a backbencher, you would come to me last. Being penultimate is not so bad. Okay, the role of the media, I think, has not changed much, which basically it remains the same as spreading awareness, agenda setting. The brief agenda setting is a bit boastful because there are so many bureaucrats here trying to help the government set the policies. And also shaping public opinion, right? These remain the objectives of media, which it continues to do. And I think even the way in which we have been telling our stories have changed. The tools we have been using to tell these stories have changed. But essentially, journalism and the purpose of journalism, the objectives of journalism remain the same. And I'm not very sure about the narratives will have to change. I think these are a bit cliched, I do agree. Education is a key to better life. They are true. Most of the cliches are true, only that they're very boring. So I think it's more than changing the title. I think we need to change the way in which we tell our stories. I happened to be there for last 15 minutes of the storytelling session, which was quite interesting. So I agree with that. I think with the changing tools, if I may slightly digress from your question about the narrative part to how the narrative should be delivered by media. We all know that the tools have changed, and I'm talking about the latest being the Gen AI being used now to tell stories. I think it's a good thing that has happened, and all these objectives which I said can be delivered to even to the unschooled, and to bring those unschooled to school. I think that is very empowering. But at the same time, the idea is not to kind of, while we make the tools available, we also be a bit guarded on who's telling the story. Because there is this risk of a lot of disinformation happening, even in education. And I think in education, it's the biggest sin, and it's very dangerous, more dangerous than in politics. And we all know the difference between misinformation, which people like me are guilty of often, making mistakes without knowing that it's a mistake till the next day or the next moment sometimes. But disinformation is something which we need to guard against. So I think it's upon the media to be more introspective in telling the stories and looking for accuracy and more than the effect, more than to impress, do a double check. That has become a difficult job, I think, especially with AI tools, which are also empowering on one side, also posing the threat of deepfakes and other things. So, but essentially, yes, the objectives, the goals, the process of storytelling remains the same. So I think we'll continue to tell stories which will criticize on one side, or two streams. One is exposing corruption, exposing inequities and inequalities in terms of caste, gender, everything that has been discussed, I'm sure, through the day. Taking on the governments if needed, and also appreciating the government and the NGOs' good deeds. So these twin aspects of journalism. I would also add one more thing of how earnestly our media houses training their own journalists, especially those who cover education also. I think that we need to. We all, I think mainstream newspapers, including mine, do spend a lot on education as a beat. I can say that we have 3 reporters in almost every big city covering just education, 2 of them covering just school education. So that's the kind of importance we give. That's also because there's a lot of reader engagement, viewership engagement in that. But I'm not so sure how we understand the layering of the changing social milieu of the country and how up to date are we. I'm being a slightly introspective here. So we need to train, retrain, keep training our journalists also, I think. That's very important as we go by adopting newer tools of storytelling with the same old objectives. So basically, the bottom line is we go back to the old school journalism, practice good journalism with newer, bigger, more technologically advanced tools.
Beautiful. What I'm taking away is being more introspective. I think that's the need of the hour, along with the new tools and adapting to the new tools. So thank you so much for giving us that perspective. I'd love to have asked you a follow-up question, but I'm going to hold myself. I want to go to Aaradhana. Last but definitely one of the most important stakeholders in education today, the philanthropy sector, which does recognize that it needs to play a very important and critical role in the education reform journey of this country. How does the philanthropic sector, one, recognize the power it brings, because it brings money, and how that needs to be rebalanced with the context. And second, how does the philanthropic sector build a strategy that is more aligned towards the future of education? I'm going off script that we have here, but I think it's a very important question to dwell on.
Thanks. So, philanthropy in India, especially private family philanthropy, is going through, I would say, a period of change, a period of expansion in India. As there is increasing prosperity, there is sort of more money, there's more money, and means that some families also have created initiatives to give back to society. So it is going through a period of expansion, a period of change from a mindset of charity to strategic philanthropy. Organizations like the Azim Premji Foundation have been pioneers in this and really inspired many families. So it's a very interesting time. It's a very interesting time to be a philanthropist in India, because there's just so much one can do. There's so much one can learn. I think one of the biggest things that I have learned in my journey, which I like to share with others, is that please get out of your bubble, because, as people of privilege, we do tend to shelter ourselves in the bubbles or in the domains where we work, where we live, where we socialize. To be an effective philanthropist, we first need to get out of that bubble. We need to be connected to the challenges, realities of life in our country. And we need to really sort of get our feet on the ground, see things, make observations, and then also meet people from various strata, meet all the stakeholders. I think just meeting an NGO is also not enough. We need to first meet the people whom we are hoping to help. We need to meet NGOs, we need to meet government policy makers to understand that, what is the direction that everybody is going in? Where can we pitch in? Where are we really required? If we're not required, let's not get in there and make things messy. So I think it's our responsibility, just as we might approach a business problem, we must approach this with complete information, with getting our hands dirty, with, being a partner and not pretending to be a savior. I think that equation we have to change. We need to, create opportunity for people to speak out. We need to create opportunity for others to also have privilege of not just opportunity, voice, but also just, create a better life for themselves. So that, I think, is our responsibility. And specifically in the field of education, I think, one can work in two ways. You could work on a specific school project, which would give you a very hands-on learning about, things that are working, not working at a more granular level. Then today there's an opportunity to partner with so many state programs and implementation organizations. So you could work at scale also. So I think it's important to be in both spaces, because it's important to know the granular, to see where maybe a change is required, and also to work at scale, because that is very, very interesting to see how some of these projects which are done at scale turn out, what are the challenges there. And I'll say with family philanthropy, the difference with CSR and family philanthropy is that we do have the capacity to be invested for a longer period of time in projects which are running at scale with, say, state partners. Sometimes maybe CSR funds don't have the ability to do that, because they have to do a very rigorous year-on-year reporting of numbers. So we do have the stomach to do that. We do have the capacity to do that. So I would encourage more and more people to participate in that opportunity that the country presents right now.
Thank you. Great. We're going to bring this to a close, but I'm going to take 10 seconds. I'm going to ask you to respond in one word or one short sentence. What do you think is the purpose of education?
To help individual live their full potential.
To empower individuals so they feel that anything is possible.
Yeah, I think it's to empower people and to help transform their lives.
To ensure free thinking.
It is to enhance all the expected skill sets in the child.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. You've been an excellent panel.